Welcome to Unbridled. This is a space where we can share stories and ask the big questions, laugh at the absurdities, and learn things not taught in textbooks. It's a place where we share truth, even the weird parts, sometimes teaching what we've learned along the way and sometimes discovering new things together. I'm your host, Jenna Davis, and I'm starting this podcast because I've come to realize your path to purpose may not always make sense when you're living it. It might look like detours and roadblocks, wrong turns. For me, it was a lot of what the hell am I doing moments. But now when I look back, I realize it's not a mess. It's a map that branches out in so many directions, eventually leading me back to me. If you listen to part one, you heard the beginning of my story, but like most beginnings, it's layered and there's a few parts I only brushed over. Not because I didn't want to tell it, but because I wanted to tell it right. And one of those parts is about Derek. Not just who he was, but who we were. And, Derek and I started dating when I was 18 years old, and we parted ways when I was 33. We were together for 15 years, and no, our story didn't end in drama or disaster. There were no screaming matches, no attorney wars, just two people trying to navigate a life that no longer fit both of us. He offered to quit music, and he took a break at one point, but I never wanted that because music was his world, his oxygen, that was him. And the truth is, music wasn't the problem. I was just too young to understand what was and too lost in my own unraveling and my own remembering to know how to reach back across the gap. So I left. And it wasn't easy, but it was honest. We still checked in from time to time, birthday messages, random memories, emails, but we had a quiet understanding that we had each other's back if it ever really mattered. And then life moved on, and he remarried, and I did too. Then I started a family, and I built a whole new world. And then I found out that Derek had passed away. And even though we hadn't spoken in several years at that point, I felt the shift. I remembered thinking, look, we agreed to live separate lives, but we never agreed not to live in this world together. So it just felt strange suddenly living here without him somewhere in this world too. His family, always gracious and kind. They invited me and my husband back to Nashville for Derek's celebration of life, and that meant so much to me. And of course, my husband and I, we went. This episode isn't about romance. It's about the imprint someone leaves on your life long after the chapters have closed. I know Derek left imprints on the lives of so many people, and in sharing my story, I want to honor his. And the truth is that even when love ends, it can still shape you forever. So this is my story, this is his story, and the unspoken spaces in between. So before we get too far into it, I want to go back to the very beginning, to a night in Athens, Georgia, the night I met Derek. And I'm not telling the story alone because one of my dear friends, Chris Hall, is right here with me, and she saw it happen in real time. So I brought her here today to help me remember it right, and maybe even remind me of some things that I have forgotten over the years. So Chris, thank you so much for being here and helping me unwrap this story.
I'm more than happy to be here.
Yes. So the night Derek and I met, you were there. Okay, yes, we were just coming back from a horse show. And Heather Lindell was with us.
Right.
She is the third musketeer. We've all been friends basically since I was 16. So before we go into the story, I have to set this up because it's not going to make sense any other way. So I was 18 and Chris was 23? Mm-hmm. 23, 18, 19, 20.
Yeah,
yes, 23. Okay, you were 23. She's 5 years older than me. And I would take her ID. And I would use her ID to get into bars and clubs in Athens, Georgia.
I love finding this.
For a long time. For a year. That was since I was 17. So they knew me there at the Roadhouse. So that's why we could go, and I didn't have to have her ID, and she was with me, and it was totally fine because they knew me. And strangely enough, talking about this, I remember the name of the bartender, Lionel.
Lionel.
Lionel. From the Roadhouse. And
Yeah, when we walked in, did you see? I think there were like a few guys sitting off in the corner. I'd kind of never seen them before.
Right. And the Roadhouse is like a place where everybody kind of knows everybody.
Yeah,
And this was
exactly.
happy hour time, like 5 o'clock or something. And it's just locals, you know?
Exactly. So I kind of checked them out, and then we all sat down. And then a little bit later, it was like his agent came up to talk to you or something.
Yeah, his wannabe agent. No, I'm kidding. It was another band member with him, Shane, and he was from New Zealand. Right. And he comes up and he's like, "My friend Deck, he wants to meet you." And I was like, "Well, then why are you here and not him? Like, if he wants to meet me, maybe he should try to come over here like you just did." And so, yeah, he did. He kind of was like, "Touche," and he left. And then Derek came over and introduced himself. Yeah.
And y'all talked for what, about 30 minutes or so? Yeah. Was that long?
Yeah, like 30 minutes, because we had to go.
That's right.
We had to get back. We had a horse show that weekend.
That's right. And then you didn't get his number, and he didn't get your number, right?
Nope.
Okay. And then I think
he invited me. Okay, so that night he told me that they were playing a show at the Half Moon Pub.
Okay.
And I think it was like 2 nights later. And he was like, "Why don't you come out to the show?" And I was like, "Okay." And we did. We went out to the show, to the Half Moon Pub, like 2 nights later. And that's when I saw him play for the first time. And he was incredible. He was with a funk band called Funk-O-Matic.
That's right.
And
Booty Police.
Yes. They were like a college campus band, and they were really good. And they had a song called Booty Police. It was a funk band. It was really good. And they had a couple of crazy songs that I specifically remember. But anyway, watched him play. And then after the show, they were loading up. He came and talked to me, and we just got wrapped up in conversation again. And then I noticed, I'm like, "You're gone."
Can we go back a little bit?
What?
There's something that that really stood out to me at that time. Do you remember when we were leaving the Roadhouse, what you said to me?
Oh, yeah, I do.
You were so giddy. And
right after I met Derek, we had talked for 30 minutes or so, and then we had to leave. But yeah, when we walked out of the Roadhouse, I looked at both Heather and Chris, and I was like, "I'm going to marry him." And I was 18, and trust me,
I smiled and shook my head.
I did not care. I was not looking to get married anytime soon. That was not my MO. How and why I said that, I do not know. But yeah, I did.
You definitely were not looking to get married.
I was definitely not looking to get married. And we didn't right away. It was 3 years later, and we'd already moved to Nashville when we got married. But yeah, I did. I said that. And I just knew it. It's weird.
Yeah.
So back to the Half Moon Pub. So they played, they wrapped up. You bolted with some friends. You were gone. And we were talking, and he offered to take me home. I was like, no, I don't want to, or, I didn't want to go home with him. So we went and sat outside, and your car was still there. So I knew you didn't totally bail. Your car was still outside, and we sat, there was a park bench outside of the Half Moon Pub, and your car was right there. And we sat on the park bench, and we talked for hours, and then we went across the street, kind of catty-cornered, or wherever the grill was. We went to the grill, and we ate, and then we came back, and we just sat there. And then you rolled up, I don't know, around 3 or 4 in the morning. And
I was trying to be a good friend.
Right, you're just giving me my time. Yes, I got it. And so then you came up, and we said goodnight, and we had exchanged each other's numbers. And that really, from that moment, that's when we started dating. Like, that was kind of, that's when it started. I mean, from that point on, we were dating.
And let's see, I moved to Maine shortly after that. Right? And then
you moved to Maine, and our first trip, Derek and I's first trip together was, Derek graduated from Berklee College of Music in Boston, and you moved to Maine, and he had been talking about wanting to go to campus and visit and see people and friends and take me, and I wanted to go visit you, so we went on our first trip together to Boston, and we spent a few days in the city, and then we took a bus up to Maine, and we came to visit you. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I remember that. There was an incident that happened. Something. You want to tell the story?
I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there. No, I'll tell it. I ain't afraid. So the house that you lived in, the house that Chris lived in, it was a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, and her roommates were in 1 bedroom. And she had the other, and she let us have that bedroom, and she slept on the couch, and the bathroom was in the middle. And so this was our first trip together, and I was, what do you call it? I was shit shy.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't been to the bathroom in like 3 days at all. And oh my God, I can't believe I'm telling this story. And
I mean, I'll tell it.
no, I got it. Let me.
Okay.
Me. And so we went to bed, and and the house was I remember the house was so quiet. And we went to bed. I woke up with the bubble gut, the boom, 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 and and like just the like, oh God, and I started sweating. I was like sweating profusely. I was like, oh my God, my stomach. And it was like I was past the point of no return. And so I was like, oh shit. And so I just got up and I went to the bathroom, and I was like, okay, it was not quiet. Mm-mm. It was not quiet at all. It was so not quiet.
No, I was downstairs.
And I remember trying to rationalize it to myself, thinking everybody's asleep. No one knows who's in the bathroom because, anyway. So wrap that up. There's not a shred of toilet paper in that bathroom.
My bad.
Nothing.
Sorry
not
about that.
one. Not one. So I was like, Chris. Chris, I yelled out for you in the middle of the night after exploding in the bathroom. And it's just everybody was awake, and they just laughed. And
it was funny. It was funny.
Yeah, and so she brought me to anyway. But the whole, the significance of this story was my vulnerability there and my embarrassment there is what opened the door to Derek then sharing with me about his vulnerability and his Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, and how he's like, you know what, I struggle with that. Every day, like to me, that's normal. And I was like, but it allowed our relationship to become more open. And he had things that he wanted to share, but didn't feel comfortable in that. Right. My poop explosion led to him being able to share about his issues. So it all worked out. So yes, thanks for that, and thanks for bringing that up. On camera.
No problem.
Okay.
Let's see. The thing I remember, when I came back from Maine, y'all were engaged and getting ready to get married.
Yeah, we were in Nashville. So we moved to Nashville, and when we first moved there, I had several jobs. I worked at the horse farm. I taught lessons. I had a little kid program, and I also helped with barn work. And I worked at a restaurant called Texana. And Derek, he didn't want to have a day job because he wanted to be available for sessions and for auditions and whatever that came up. So he got a job working at Kroger at the night shift from 11 to 7. And so, yeah, that's what he did. So
that's right. I remember playing football in between his breaks. We'd go and see him.
Well, when you came to visit.
Yeah, when I came to visit.
He was... Yeah, we hung out, and then we went up to see him and played football in the Kroger parking lot.
That's so funny. I remember that.
Yeah. But it took off really quick. Like, our lives took off really quick. There was a lot of hard moments, but the progression was consistent, with everything that was going on with the horses and everything that was going on with his music and touring and sessions. It just kind of unfolded in a big way. And so, I was writing with Tammy Crawford at the time, and then through her, I met my investors, Pat and Randy Durter, who then I was going to Europe and importing horses and coming back and going down to Wellington and competing and training with Robert Dover and everything. And he was on tour, and he was playing for, whoever was big at the time. And it progressed until we moved to LA. And that, I think I covered most of that in my first episode. So
didn't something happen on the way out to LA? Something.
Well, we sold our house. We moved out to LA. We did not hire movers. We packed up we sold our house. We had a house in Franklin. We sold our house, and we packed up the U-Haul, and we put my car. I had a little SLK convertible. I'm only saying that because it was tiny, and it'll make sense in a minute. It was a tiny little car, and I had a car trailer tow behind the U-Haul that I was driving, and he was driving in his Expedition. And we packed it all up, and we drove. We took off, the two of us, and we moved to LA. And it was there were awful fires going on. It's like we were driving into hell. We were like, oh my God, there are fires everywhere. And the U-Haul broke down in Barstow, going through the mountains. And what was that? The Mojave Desert, right? Yeah.
Missing signs every.
And for like 5 miles straight, it was nothing but like missing person, last seen here, have you seen, missing person. And I was just like, ugh. And then my U-Haul breaks down, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
No cell service.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Yes, and no cell service. It was like so spotty. So we were driving together. So obviously we pulled over. My U-Haul just stopped, but he pulled over and I kind of coasted onto the side. And we tried to make some calls and nothing was working. I was like, forget this. I don't care about anything in that truck. I was like, pull my car off the trailer. And so we were like trying to figure out how to unlatch the car from the trailer, and we backed it off and we just left. We left all of our stuff on the side of the road in a U-Haul in Barstow, California, and drove on into Woodland Hills.
No, but wasn't there, like, didn't your U-Haul have to be, like, they couldn't fix it or something?
So, yeah, they couldn't. We did reach someone, and we didn't have a lock or anything on this U-Haul. It's amazing that our stuff was still there, and it was. Nothing was taken. A lot of stuff was broken, but nothing was taken. But they towed the U-Haul to some facility to like try to fix it. They couldn't fix it. And I guess there's U-Haul regulations that they're not allowed to like unload my stuff and put it in another U-Haul. They had to tow the U-Haul to Woodland Hills. But here's the thing, if you know anything about living in California, like we were right off the 101 and we were on like a side road, and there's not really like parking is not like, oh, you just go somewhere. There's like not a lot of parking. So they towed this U-Haul and they parked. It was like a mile from our apartment. So we were like hauling stuff like back and forth trying to unload this thing. Anyway, it was fond, disastrous memories, not fun at the time, but now it's funny and it's all good. But yeah, so that was our moving there. And I had FedEx my horse. I literally put Nairobi on a FedEx flight and sent him to New York. I mean, to LA. So that was fun. That was interesting. I didn't know you could do that until I actually did it. So
I know he enjoyed it.
Yeah, so that was LA. So that was our move to LA.
And then, well, I got a call, but I guess how long were you out in LA?
4 years.
4 years?
4 years. And it was good. I loved it. And I had a lot of great friends. I still do. I love all my LA friends. I can't wait to have all of them on the show. And life was good. And then, like I talked about in my first episode, then the shift occurred and it was undeniable. It was not something that you could ignore. We moved back to Nashville for a little bit. And, and then,
Yeah, I remember riding back with you on that trip, and then waiting on another moving trip.
Right.
Story.
So when we moved back from LA to Nashville, we had real movers. We didn't have to load up a U-Haul to come back. We actually could hire movers, and we bought a 20-acre farm right outside of Nashville with a big, beautiful house, and it was super exciting. And then I was supposed to rush back out. Yeah, you flew out.
Yep, I flew out.
So you could drive back with me because I wanted to get our cars back. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know you could ship a car back then. You got to fly a horse, but I didn't think about shipping a car. But anyway, so I drove Derek's car with you back.
We went straight through
to Nashville. We drove straight through.
We had a timeline.
Yeah, because we had to meet the movers.
The movers, yeah.
And the movers were almost 2 weeks late. We sat in an empty house. And we went and bought air mattresses and a TV.
And Derek was still on tour with Kelly.
He was still on the road.
And they still didn't have. By the time he got there, did they even?
No, the furniture started. It was like, welcome to our empty house.
Yeah, I had great moving stories.
So sometimes the transitions are, a little weird, but it always pans out.
One thing when I'd visit y'all, I noticed y'all were writing music a lot. And, can you tell me about that? Because it was always amazing to me, the way that y'all wrote music together.
Yes. So we had a very strange process, the way that we would write together. I don't really play any instruments very well, not enough to really do much with it. But he would write a song, just the drum track, which but literally from the keeping up to the bridge to the just he would write a drum track. And if you heard it and you didn't know anything about it, you would just be like, okay, what's that? But I could hear melodies in it. And so I would write the song over on top of this drum track. And sometimes we would have to like cut and paste a little bit, or I'd need a couple more measures before the chorus kicked in or whatever. So we could make adjustments. But I could just hear the song when I heard the drum track. So I would sing, write the lyrics, sing the melody this part of it was just his drums and my voice. And then he would build the song around that. So then he would come in and he'd add some keys, and then he'd add bass, and he would add, string or whatever required of the song. And then we'd have the demo. And then if we wanted to cut it for real, or we'd bring a band and be like, here's the demo, now let's do it live or whatever. But we built the song like opposite of what most people do, like totally backwards. Like there's no one that ever just lays down drums and then writes a song. But it worked for us. Mm-hmm. It absolutely worked. And then it got to a point where we knew each other's style so well that he could, he would send me tracks sometimes, like if he was on the road he would send me tracks, and I would just write the song to the track, and I would cut a vocal over it, and I'd send it back, and then, he'd have the guys play it, and we'd write songs like that. Yeah.
So what was your favorite song? I mean, I know what my favorite song is.
What was your favorite?
Truck.
Don't Touch My Truck. Yeah, that was a good one.
Love it.
I loved Vodka. Where's the Vodka? That was a good song. I feel like those Truck and Vodka are timeless. And I loved a song. I wish that we would have finished it. The song itself is finished, but we never recut it like with good instruments or players. It's just like all, thrown together. But it's a song that we wrote for American Idol winner.
Oh, I know that.
It's called "This Is Me," and we never pitched it, but that was the intent for it. And it is so good. Like I'm like, I would love to just go and cut this for real with like real musicians and
you still have it?
Real sounds. I do. I still have it. But yeah, so those are my favorite songs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What was one of your favorite memories from y'all's relationship?
Actually, I mean, there's so many, obviously, but my favorite memory of him wasn't actually during our relationship. It was after we'd already divorced. So one of my most special horses, his name was Nairobi. And I imported Nairobi as a baby, as a 3-year-old. And I had other horses, and I had trained other horses at Grand Prix and competed. But Nairobi was the first horse that I had ever trained up and competed all the way from starting him under saddle to the Grand Prix. And when by the time I got him to the Grand Prix, it was my first Grand Prix with Nairobi. And, Derek knew, Nairobi was flying back and forth to LA with us. Nairobi went everywhere. He knew Nairobi and Nairobi knew him, and he was special. And so it was my first Grand Prix on Nairobi, and Derek and his family and people showed up for him. So to me, that was so cool. I was like, oh my God, like we're divorced. And it was like, it's just as special for him as it was for me, and he wanted to see his first Grand Prix. So he came, and I thought that's like top shelf right there, So I felt very loved, even though it was a different kind of loved. I felt that was special. So that's my favorite memory.
And he did. I remember probably one of my favorite memories is you trying to teach him how to tack up Nairobi before he knows.
Yeah.
And groom.
Yeah.
That didn't work out so well.
Yeah, no, he would never be my groom.
No, but there was effort.
He'd be as good. He'd be about as good of a groom as I would be a roadie. Like it's just not going to happen.
No, but he put the effort in. It was fun to watch. So one of the things that I noticed on one of my visits up to Nashville, Derek was sick, really sick, and y'all had to go back to Athens.
Yeah.
And it was with his ulcerative colitis, I believe. Mm-hmm. How was that throughout your marriage? Because it was so hidden from me. Actually, I spent a lot of time with y'all, and I was surprised at that one incident.
Yes. So, yeah. He stayed in remission a lot. There were times when so the only thing we ever thought about, it was his food. was his eating, because I could see patterns, and some of this he knew too, and not just because I pointed it out, like he already knew, but I could see patterns with his eating and with his food. And when he stayed away from pasteurized dairy products, when he stayed away from breads and processed foods and sugar, and when he stayed away from the alcohol, he would heal, and he would have no issues. I mean, he was in remission several times for more than a year with no issues. But he loved food. I mean, we all do, but he really loved food. He lived a lifestyle that, drinking was part of the job almost,
right.
Without, not really, but you know what I mean? So keeping things like solid and smooth and in remission, that's where our fights started. And I would be like the food Nazi, like, what did you eat? Why are you drinking milk? No ice cream for you.
Yeah, wasn't there,
but he kept it, but it worked because it was the voice that he had drowned out himself. Like, I think he knew, but but I was that voice of like, no. And when he was on the road touring heavily, he would govern himself better, for the most part. Because you can't function like that. He can't play, and nothing was going to get in the way of his playing. But when he would have that binge, or he would succumb to whatever event was going on, the backlash from that took months to heal and months to get better from. So yeah, when he came back, when you saw him, when we took him to Athens, so he had just gotten back from Asia. I think he was with Kelly, and they did the MTV Asia Awards, and they were touring through Thailand and just had concerts all over the place. And he came back, and he was sick. And he was really sick. And then he was hurting. He was very painful. And I think he actually had like an abscess that was causing him so much pain that he was freaking out. That was why we actually took him to the hospital. And he didn't want to go. He wanted to go to his doctor growing up in Athens. He wanted to go to the hospital in Athens. So we put him in the car, and we drove him to Athens, and they took care of the abscess that had occurred. But the bigger thing is that he had picked up Giardia in Thailand, and he was so sick. He was literally bleeding out. They had to do like multiple blood transfusions. Wow. And he had to stay in the hospital. That's the one and only time when we were together that he was in the hospital or had an issue like that. And that was awful and terrifying. And it took a long time for him to recover from that. But he did. And, I'm glad that he had the abscess, because we may not have, I don't know. We needed to get him to the hospital, and that abscess is what made him get in there. Right. So that was good. But, that was the one and only major illness that we dealt with, through our marriage and life together.
He was gray. I remember he was gray when y'all left.
Yeah.
And like I said, that was the first time I was familiar with it. His family, y'all always seemed close.
Yeah, we were, and we are. They're great. His dad is no longer with us, but he was great. He was a funny man.
I do remember that.
Yeah, he. Okay, first of all, he was a poultry scientist, like a professor at UGA, and he was like one of the leading world's poultry scientists or something like that. Anyway, chickens.
And pigeons.
And he loved pigeons.
I remember.
He had racing pigeons. But I remember when that first started, he had a magazine, a Spanish-speaking magazine or Spanish magazine, and he sold that, and then he's like, he needed a new hobby. And one of his friends, Rance, or I can't remember, I think it was Rance, I'm not sure, had racing pigeons, and suddenly he got the bug. And I mean, it went from like a little birdhouse to like a pigeon mansion in their backyard.
I remember.
And he was raising pigeons, and he'd bring them up to Nashville and let them go back. And I mean, it was funny. And his mom is absolutely lovely. She's the sweetest lady. I actually invited them to call in and be a part of this show to talk about Derek. And they were very excited, but they're very, very shy. And, her and her mom, Tamara is his sister, and Tamara and his mom, Frida, both were like, oh, we'd love to, but no, we can't imagine doing that. We're too shy. But Frida did, here, I'll get it. She did send me something.
Sweet.
Send me something to read about her son for the show. So let me pull that up, and I'm just going to read it to you real quick because it is sweet. So good luck. Okay, I pray you can use this. I know you know how proud I am of him. Okay. She said, these are his mom's words. She said, my son was such a kind and gentle man. He was very funny and loved life and always looked to God for guidance. He loved playing drums from the 5th grade on. It was his dream to become a famous drummer. He worked so hard at his skills and amazed everyone, including his wife, Jenna. Together, they climbed the ladder of success during their marriage, and it was a wild and fun ride. It was. They were a great team and enjoyed life to the fullest. It gave me such joy to watch him on stage as he performed. I thought, wow, that is my son up there on stage. And he had worked so hard for everything that he had achieved, and he achieved it all and then some. Derek had chronic health issues that he battled daily, yet he was still able to push through and attain all that he had aspired to do in his life. I was and am very proud of him and for him. Amazing drummer, amazing friend, amazing son, and an amazing human being. So that was from his mom about talking about him today. So, yeah. And his sister, Tamara, she's in Murfreesboro. And she's a police officer.
Right.
And she's awesome. And she's one hell of a woman. And Derek used to tell me, so Tamara and I are the same age. And Tam is his little sister.
Right.
So we were kind of similar. So we would have little, like, that was her big brother and that was my husband. So sometimes we'd be like, it was never ever anything major. It was just silly stuff. But anyway, I remember when Derek would be like, you're so much like my sister. And I'm like, what? And he was like, yes. And he was like, I mean, y'all are totally different. I'm like, that's weird. Take that back. And he's like, no, you're different, but you're just like, there are some things about y'all that's very, we're both the youngest and things like that. But she's great. And she is, I take that as a compliment that when he says that, or when he said that, because she's really awesome.
I know he's really close to her.
And they always have been really close. He was very close with his family, which is why I was very close with them too. So yeah. Yeah.
So many stories. What do you think Derek would say if he were here?
I don't know. I remember when we were dating, one other thing, I would always say, like, we would hold hands or whatever, and I'd be looking at our hands. And I was kind of a weirdo. I would say things like, gosh, isn't it going to be so cool one day to, like, look down and see our hands when they're 90 and wrinkly and all decrepit looking and be like, wow, these are our hands and they're still holding each other or whatever. And he would be like, you'd see him look down at his hands and he'd be like, yeah, I don't see my hands getting old. I don't think I'm going to live to be very old. And I'd be like, stop. I'd freak out. I'd be like, stop saying that. Don't say that. He's like, I just don't. He's like, I don't think I'm going to live to be very old. He was like, I am not. And I would be, I would write it off and be like, stop it. You're just trying to ruin the moment or whatever. And then after we got married, we would talk about kids' names, because we both wanted kids, just not right then, but we both wanted kids, but we would talk about names. And so we picked out names. We were like, if it's a boy, it'll be Bryson, because that was his middle name. And if it's a girl, it'll be Brianna. Mm-hmm. And so we'd kind of talk about that. And he was like, yeah, I would love to have kids, but I just don't think I'm going to have kids. He was like, I'm not going to be around for a long time. And I would be like, stop. Like, what the freak? Stop. He was like, I'm just being honest. And I'm like, stop. Well, stop. We don't need honesty like that. No. But he would say those things, So those are the things that I think about sometimes, or I did after this first happened. But yeah, I think he would probably, because of that, if he was sitting right now, he'd probably be like, told you so. Because that's his personality. Yeah, that's probably what he would say.
If you could go back, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? Would you do anything to help him with his...
Oh my gosh, I did.
Well, I know you did, but I'm saying that you know more things right now and about his condition.
Right. sure, obviously. I know a lot more now because I've studied a lot more and all that. But yeah, I would, first of all, there would, my love sometimes brings on, I want what's best for you. And if you can't see that, I'm going to put a mirror up and be like, here. And that's what I did with him too, even with the food and stuff. Mm-hmm. But so I just think that, I'm not going to enable you because I love you. I'm going to even more not enable you because I love you, and I would definitely help him help himself and make the better choices to, help us out. But yeah, that's beside the point.
What do you think Derek would want you to say if you were here?
He would probably want me to say something to the people struggling with Crohn's right now, or ulcerative colitis, especially the musicians, and share with them the things that that I know and that I've learned through my experience with him, because he was an advocate, even though it's a double-edged sword. His life didn't lend itself to health necessarily, right. But I know he wanted it, and I know that he would want that, especially for other people. So, yeah, I guess that's what he would want. So I guess that's what I need to do, huh? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll do that.
You were an advocate for him for 15 years. So.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this. If you're living with ulcerative colitis, I know it's not just about stomach pain or bathroom trips. It's about navigating life in a body that sometimes feels like it's working against you. And it's about exhaustion and unpredictability and having to say no when you wish you could say yes. But here's what I've witnessed firsthand. Your body is listening. It wants to heal. I've seen Derek's remission last nearly a year or more when his body was supported with rest and clean food and gentle care. And when things like sugar, pasteurized dairy products, processed foods, and alcohol were eliminated and replaced with nourishment, his body healed. It healed. I'm not a doctor, but I am someone who loved him through the disease. And what I've learned is that the small choices, the daily choices, they stack up either for you or against you. Did you know that medical errors are now considered the third leading cause of death in the U.S., just behind heart disease and cancer? A 2023 study estimated that nearly 800,000 Americans became permanently disabled or lost their lives each year due to misdiagnosis or medical mistakes. Now, I want to be really clear here. I am not anti-doctor. I have a deep respect for medical professionals. We need them. They carry incredible wisdom, skill, training, and they save lives every single day, but they're also human. And just like the rest of us, they can make mistakes and they can become overworked and overwhelmed or stuck in patterns. They don't know everything. They know what they've been taught and they know what they've been told, and they have rules to follow just like everyone else in business. And the medical establishment that the doctors work for is a business for profit, not wellness. And the establishment doesn't make money off healthy people. And that's why we have to remember that we are the primary caretakers of our own bodies. Your symptoms aren't just noise to be silenced. They are signals. Your body symptoms and pain, it's communication. It's calling out for your attention and not another pill to muffle its voice. So please be curious, be kind to yourself, and ask the questions. Don't be afraid to seek a second opinion or an alternative method to healing, because sometimes you got to look beyond the prescription pad. Healing doesn't always come in a bottle, and sometimes it begins with listening, and your body is the messenger. So, yeah, I think that if Derek was here right now in this moment and could ask me to share something, I think that's what he would want me to share with you, with everybody listening, or anybody that has ulcerative colitis. He died from it. He didn't have to. So, just know there's other ways to manage, and be an advocate for yourself. Be your own advocate for your health. Yeah. So, all right, I did it. I I said what I think he would want me to say if he were here right now.
I think Derek would be very happy to have you getting the word out about ulcerative colitis.
Thank you. And maybe a different perspective.
Yeah.
Slightly.
Definitely. So. I mean, you guys, 15 years.
Yeah, 15 years. That's crazy.
You know, y'all packed a lot and experienced a lot.
We lived big. We did a lot. We really did.
In those 15 years.
Chris, thank you so much for joining me today and helping me. I could have never,
oh, you're so welcome.
Kept it going without your
the
help.
Memories.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, you lived through a lot of them with us. You know, you were there. You saw it firsthand. Mm-hmm. So anyway, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
There's a certain kind of love that begins with wild eyes and big dreams and the kind that says, let's build something huge. Let's do this together. And we did. We really did. I grew up while buses were loading and arenas were filling and while songs hit the radio and sickness hit his body. Success rose and quietly so did the pressure. There's no handbook for how to build a life when one of you is climbing the charts and the other is quietly holding the foundations together. No roadmap how to stay connected when dreams start asking for more than it gives. I saw him through the stage lights and through the flare-ups and through the joy and fatigue. And I know what foods would heal him and I knew what would hurt him. And I also knew that I couldn't make the choices for him. All I could do was love him through the choices that he made. And there were so many moments of magic and moments of deep unraveling and moments when I wondered if the perfect life we built was still even mine at all. But here's what I know. Love doesn't have to last forever to be real. You can leave someone and still carry their heart with you. You can lose yourself inside of a story and still find your way back home. The story of us wasn't a failure. It was a formation. And even now, on the other side of it all, I hold it with both hands, the love, the lessons, and the letting go. Because sometimes the most sacred chapter is the one that teaches you who you are when the applause fades and the lights go dark and you're finally left with just yourself. But before I close, this part's just for him. Before the heartbreak, before the headlines, before the health battles and the unraveling and the parting of ways, he was electric. Soul D. That's what we called him, Soul D. He was a fire starter with his drum kit, a soul full of spark and sound and so much God-given talent that it spilled out whether he tried or not. He didn't just play music, he bled it and breathed it and he moved people with it. From the garage to the Grammys, from tiny clubs to sold-out arenas, he brought heart, grit, and my God, he brought the groove. And the thing is, he made it. He did it. He lived the dream. And he stood on the world's biggest stages. Wow! And he played the soundtrack to so many millions of people's lives and somehow still managed to keep disarming people with his amazing grin and his unapologetic swagger. So this part's just for him. Not part of my story, but as the man he was all on his own. A creative force, a freak of nature, a loyal friend, a true original with rhythm that no one will ever quite replicate. Derek, Soul D. Wyatt, wherever your soul is now, I hope it's loud, and I hope it's free, and I hope it's exactly the kind of wild that you always were. And just so you know, the beat that you left behind, it still echoes. And to you watching and listening, thank you for sharing this time and this special moment with me. Stay brave, stay soft, and stay unbridled. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, stay unbridled.